Part one of Never Wave Goodbye. Well, now, as I was telling you, this two-parter was one of the earliest of our episodes to be aired. This episode, I see, was aired on the ABC network on October the 15th, 1963. And, of course, by this time, the series had been on the air for a number of weeks and had shot to the top of the ratings, much to everybody's surprise, because I can remember when we met to shoot the pilot for this series, David and I, who'd never met before, were walking up and down on the street of Tucson, Arizona, I think it was, where we were shooting, and we exchanged pleasantries, and then David said, "Well, what do you think of the prospects of this pilot?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Everybody who's an expert in our trade," and that means everybody, of course, people who'd never dream of telling their dentist how to fill their teeth, have no compunction at all in telling us all the rights and wrongs of show business. And I said, well, everybody whom I speak to says that it couldn't possibly succeed because it has no real ending. And he said, that's what they tell me too. Well, of course, that was the very thing that kept it going. And so it shows you how often the so-called experts are wrong. But this now is part two of Never Wave Goodbye, and he goes on to tell how Lieutenant Gerard backtracks Kimball's jailhouse visit and finds a tiny clue, which is a piece of a match with the word sales on it, just on the side of the match. And with only that small piece of evidence, Lieutenant Gerard begins figuring out exactly where Richard Kimball must have been working. And knowing, of course, at first hand, and Gerard's considerable skills as a detective, Kimball realizes that he's no longer safe, and he tells his girlfriend that he's got to leave. She, of course, wants to accompany him, but he doesn't want her to lead the same existence that he does as a fugitive, so they compromise by devising a seemingly foolproof plan that'll fake their deaths and hopefully satisfy Lieutenant Gerard. Well, even though the plan is elaborate and perfectly executed, Eric, the guy who's in love with the girlfriend, is easily able to convince Gerard that Kimball and the woman could very well be still alive. Anyway, Gerard decides to find out, even though he'll have to risk his own life to do it. Here then, with our guests, Robert Duvall, Susan Oliver, and Bert Remsen, is part two of Never Wave Goodbye.
Name, Richard Kimball. Profession, Doctor of Medicine. Destination, Death Row State Prison. Richard Kimball has been tried and convicted for the murder of his wife. But laws are made by men, carried out by men, and men are imperfect. Richard Kimball is innocent. Proved guilty, what Richard Kimball could not prove was that moments before discovering his wife's body, he encountered a man running from the vicinity of his home. A man with one arm. A man who has not yet been found. Richard Kimball ponders his fate as he looks at the world for the last time and sees only darkness. But in that darkness, fate moves its huge hand.
Fugitive. A QM production, starring David Jansen as The Fugitive, with guest stars Susan Oliver, Robert Duvall, Lee Phillips, also starring Barry Morse as Lieutenant Gerard. Tonight's episode, Never Wave Goodbye, Part 2. A man cannot run forever.
2 hours up the coast from Los Angeles, Richard Kimball has found a place he thinks is safe. Here in the early mission town of Santa Barbara, wearing the name Jeff Cooper, he has begun to put down roots. A man on the run must sooner or later become tied to a town, a look on the face of a girl, the touch of her eyes. But there may always be the doubt. What has he left behind? A footprint, a careless word, a remembered image in the eye of a stranger, a match. What can they track him with? If he's tired enough of running, he will put the doubt aside.
Hi.
Hi. Well, say, I could study hairdressing.
Get used to it, will you? Going sailing?
I'll be racing the dinghy at Sunday.
All right.
Why the smile, Richard Kimball?
Cooper. Jeff Cooper. Don't forget it, Karen.
All right, then. Why the smile, Jeff Cooper?
Because we're going to race a sailboat. Because I found a town to live in. Because I quit running. Because Gerard hasn't tracked me down by now, and for the first time I'm wondering if he ever will. Because of all that and you.
You unpacked all these weeks it's been sitting here. I was hoping you'd unpack.
I never want to have to pack again.
I never want you to have to pack again.
Sales. That's all.
That's all. Kimball left in your visitor's room upstairs.
Doctor's an interstate fugitive, and he's got the guts to walk into the L.A. County Jail just for a look at a prisoner?
He's tired of running. I read somewhere that you'd arrested a one-armed man for an assault on a woman.
Sounds as though he believes in his one-armed man.
There could be another explanation.
What's that?
Trying to get a look at this one so as you could frame him.
Well, yeah. Well, he's probably far gone by now.
I wonder. See, he saw me yesterday. He knows I'm on the coast. He knows I'll think that he's taken off for Baltimore or Oshkosh or Miami or someplace. But suppose, just to cross me up, he stays on this coast. Gets a job selling marine hardware, working around a yacht club, or maybe making sales for boats.
He doesn't have to be working around boats at all. He could have picked up a book of matches on a fishing pier.
I want to check it out. I'll teletype for clearance to stay over.
Look, tomorrow's Monday, and tomorrow I can check with the match manufacturers. Are you sure you want to start today?
I'd like to try. How many yacht clubs are there around L.A.? How many sailmakers?
Oh, I guess between San Diego and Santa Barbara, there must be half a dozen. I suppose a half a dozen sailmakers. And you want to check them all?
I don't want to check any of them. I want to go home and go fishing with my boy, but I have to check them all.
I'll get you a list. But a match, that's a pretty thin lead.
Well, that's all I have.
Dust around the sails. This desk. Look, receipt for sailmaker's thread, dated 1931.
He knew sails and rigging, and he knew people, too. Come on, I'm going to take you sailing.
Hey, I'm sorry, Ray. Jeff and I are racing the dinghy today. He's down entering us now.
Jeff, I thought he was leaving.
He's staying, Ray.
Now, listen, Karen, I understand. Believe me, I do. And I like it. But you know how I feel about you, and I'm not letting you go by default.
It isn't by default, Ray. I just love him, that's all.
Now, look, I'm going to cut down my practice. I'm going to have time to live like a human being. I haven't sailed my boat in 2 months. And I'll make time for you and for me. It'll be like it was, Karen.
I'm sorry, Ray.
Honey, this guy is a rolling stone. You said so yourself. He even admitted it the day Lars died. he leaves, he's going to hurt you, and I won't have you hurt.
He's not going to leave. He'll never have to leave. He won't.
Doctor, I need you at the Coast Guard pier.
Why?
For an identification.
On who?
The Coast Guard finally found some debris off San Miguel. The Paloma. She hit a rock. They found the body, too.
Pedro Rodriguez.
They think so.
What do you mean they think so?
Sharks.
Hurry, Ray. They'll have to know.